Hey, this is Craig Taggart. I am starring in Wounded, playing the role of Carrol. If you'd like to know more, just listen in. I first fell in love with theater when I was in the third grade, and I saw the sixth grade production of Cinderella. That's the first time I ever fell in love. I fell in love with Dee Wisdom, who played Cinderella. She was in a pink terry cloth robe, and I was smitten. And then when I was in sixth grade, one of the things that our school, the district did was the dress rehearsal for the spring musical. They invited all the sixth grades in the district to come watch. And that year they put on Camelot, and our sixth grade class went, and I was knocked out. They had live fire on stage, and I knew that this was the high school that I was going to be going to ultimately, and I'm like, that's for me. And I never looked back, and I've been doing theater ever since. I would say I first fell in love with acting relatively recently, within the last decade. Now, that being said, I've always been a performer, like from the age of, pre-birth. Like, I think I was born a ham and born a performer, but discovering the science of the art of acting has been within the last decade. And it's quite honestly become an obsession because it's never ending. It's always asking the next question, digging deeper, and that's kind of my approach with acting, but I've always been a performer at heart. My process of bringing a character to life in a theater play is reading the script and then reading it again, just asking that next question of who is this person? Why is this person doing this? What led this person to make this decision? For example, if I'm drinking, what am I drinking? Why am I drinking that? How many have I had? What's making me drink? It's, again, my approach is asking the next question until you get the answer, and then you make the choice and you make it your own. For me, theater is such a unique format and different from film or television is in its immediacy. It's in the moment. It's literally live, and there's that exchange, that energy, that give and take, because regardless of whatever theater piece you're doing, the audience is always another member of the cast, if you will, because there's that exchange of energy, and I've always been in love with the immediacy of it and that connection that is lacking, honestly, in the genre of film and television, which is why I think theater has been and will always be my first love, because of that electric connection that you have with an audience. I first heard about P3 production company through John Peterson, who had been working with the playwright Jiggs Burgess, who I was connected with. And it was brought to my attention that P3 production company was going to be doing Wounded Part 2 as part of the Fringe Festival. And I was going to move heaven and earth to be a part of it, because I was such a fan of this piece when it was first introduced to me a couple of years ago in its developmental stages. So I've been with it since close to the inception, and I'm in love with the piece and so excited to be working with P3 to literally breathe life into this character in this piece. I am in love with this playwright style. I honestly feel as if Jiggs Burgess and I, the playwright, have never met, but I feel as if he has written something that comes from my soul, in that I feel such a connection to Carrol, in the fact that the way Jiggs has crafted this character is that he's rife with witticisms, and there's an innate poignancy to him. The words that come out of his mouth are so delicious to say, because it's rooted in Southern humor, and that's something that I've always had an affinity for, based on having grown up in Missouri. My grandmother would say, we're not Southern, we're country. But it's been a writing style that I've always had, held very close to my heart. And Jiggs is so talented with it that he makes the work of an actor quite easy simply by speaking the words that are on paper. My character, Carrol, goes through quite the arc in Wounded in that at the beginning of this chapter of the story, he is a nervous wreck. He is expecting company, somebody who he has not seen in years, who he's very, very excited to see. And we go on quite the journey of his nervousness and then settling into the pain and the pain that comes from the honesty of his experience with his guest that comes to visit, and the terms of his own life, and his coming to terms with the failed purpose that has been his existence, and unrealized dreams that he's experienced. So it's quite the ride of nervousness and being frazzled, and how he overcompensates that, and ultimately being honest with both himself and a loved one. The layering of the themes of Wounded, even just looking at it from the standpoint of why is that the title? Wounded, in the fact that it speaks to the experience of humanity, in that how do we rebound from being hurt? And what happens when we're hurt? How do we process that? It reminds me a lot of the Langston Hughes poem of A Dream Deferred. What happens to a dream deferred? Does it dry up like a raisin in the sun? Does it fester? And there's a lot of components in Carrol and in Robert, who's also in the other character in the play, of what wounded looks like, what wounded is, and how does one overcome being hurt. Well, John has been delightful. I can tell, over the course of pre-production, if you will, and planning out the schedules, he has the most amazing attitude. I can tell that this is a project that he really wants to see take flight, and it's a special bond that he and I have now in being a part of something that has never existed before. P3 through John is literally giving this piece its first opportunity to come to life. And I can tell just in the exchanges we've had via email about how excited he is to work on this and how much fun this is going to be as a collaboration. I am most looking forward to, when performing Wounded live on stage, is feeling that connection with number one, I'm looking forward to throwing down with Shaw Jones. He is one of my favorite actors. I am thrilled beyond measure that he is doing this with me. And the other thing that I love as an actor, as I've spoken to, as far as the difference between film and television, is I was born to be on stage. I know that is my purpose. And having that exchange and that relationship with an audience for an hour and a half, telling this story, knowing that they've got a connection to this character just like I've got a connection to this character, and that we'll all walk away with it, learning something a little bit about ourselves. I do have a history with Shaw Jones, my co-star in Wounded, in that we first met about a decade ago at the Richard Lawson Studios. So we've studied acting together. So what's really cool about this particular project as we get ready to jump in is that he and I already have a chemistry and a shorthand of working with one another. I trust him implicitly. I know that the work that he's going to bring to the table is going to impinge me. I know that I can volley back to him and have that exchange that otherwise would take a little bit of getting to know you with a total stranger, and we actually can bring the history that is inherent between Carrol and Robert through Craig and Shaw. So I'm really excited about that, and I cannot wait to play with. He's brilliant, and I can't wait for everybody to see how just phenomenal he is. And selfishly, I can't wait to play. I think audiences will be surprised with Wounded at its unapologetic honesty. It peels away throughout the course of the story some really, really dark, some really, really painful experiences that this individual, that Carrol, has gone through. Because as with great Southern writing, it's all the feels. It's laugh out loud, and then on a dime, you're on the verge of crying your heart out, because funny people oftentimes are the deepest wounded. And it's inherent in the writing, but I think people will be really surprised with just how honest the character ultimately becomes regarding his experience and how raw that is. I am most looking forward, relative to the whole experience of Fringe, of seeing all the different art forms that are going to be there. I know that this is a play that's got comedy, it's got tragedy to it, but I also know there's musical pieces, that there are one-person show components. It speaks to perhaps one of my first loves, which is variety television and variety performing, and that there's, with Fringe, in my experience, a little something for everybody. So I'm really intrigued by the variety and the versatility that's going to be out there. And I also think it's important and wise to support your fellow artists. So when I'm not on stage performing, I want to go and see as much other art and support as many other artists as I can. To my understanding, it's also very economical. You go, full disclosure, you go to a movie these days and it can cost you upwards of $50 for the ticket and the popcorn and the whole experience, but you're spending a fraction of that at Fringe and you're seeing something live and in person. And it's just I think there's no comparison as far as the discount that you get through Fringe from an economic standpoint than, like I said, dropping a good part of your paycheck at AMC or elsewhere. I think Wounded via P3 production at the Hollywood Fringe Festival is a must-see. You're going to see two artists that are on purpose and doing what they were put on this planet to do, with a piece that is rife with comedy and tragedy, it's what I was put on this planet to do, as far as experiencing all the feels. And you're going to see two artists at the top of their game throwing down and telling a story unlike it's been told before. What I would like to say to Jiggs Burgess, the playwright, is thank you for this opportunity, for speaking such specificity to this character of Carrol, because something that I have learned in the evolution of my artistry is that the more specific one can be with their storytelling, the more universal it becomes. And the specificity in which Carrol is written lands on me in that I have, over the course of the last 40 some odd years that I've been doing this, I know who this man is, and it's something that I literally was put on this earth to do. And I cannot wait to do it, and I thank you for the chance, Jiggs. I think people should get involved with P3 because of the inherent love of the craft. This is a production company that loves live theater, and it's a phenomenal club to be a part of if that is your passion. I see it in the enthusiasm with which their productions are mounted and developed, and I'm so proud and happy and excited to be a part of it, and I want others to join the club. Production companies like P3 are so important because their sustainability isn't just on ticket sales, especially when you're getting, ticket sales at such an affordable rate. We want people that ordinarily wouldn't be able to see theater to be able to come and see live theater, but full disclosure, doesn't pay the bills. Art is important, but it's also expensive. So I think if you have a love for the theater, this is the lesson in life that I've received, is that if theater is something that has touched your life, it's of equal importance for you to give back as much as you can, as often as you can, because you're paying it forward from the experience that you've had, like I did when I was in third grade, to continue doing it so that others can benefit from it. So I think it's important, as I said, to give what you can when you can so that everybody gets to enjoy it. Hey, I am Craig Taggart. I am starring as Carrol in the upcoming production of Wounded, produced by P3 Productions. Get your tickets now. Tickets are limited. You do not want to miss this. It's going to be incredible. Can't wait to see you there.